Did you know that Alchemist Accelerator can operate a program for you? Welcome to Innovators Inside, the podcast for people working in corporate and government innovation. Brought to you by AlchemistX, the corporate services division of Alchemist Accelerator. Here you'll follow me, Rachel Chalmers, head of AlchemistX, as I talk to the industry's highest achievers and most compelling thought leaders. These are fly-on-the-wall conversations with leading practitioners in the field. They'll share their lessons learned so that you don't have to go through the painful experiences that they did. So sit back, relax, and get ready to level up. Today, I couldn't be happier to welcome Dr. Angela Lim to the show. Angela is a serial health tech entrepreneur focused on innovative solutions and a former pediatric doctor at Auckland Hospital. She is CEO and co-founder of Clearhead, a digital mental health company with a strong social mission to improve access to personalized care to everyone and empower them to maintain their well-being. Clearhead was one of the stars of the Community Safety and Wellness Accelerator, which is operated by AlchemistX in partnership with Innovate Alberta and the Edmonton Police Foundation. I'm also very pleased to welcome a past guest back to the show. Ian Bergman was Angela's coach for the Community Safety and Wellness Accelerator, and as I've stepped up to be the president of Alchemist Accelerator itself, Ian is the new managing director of AlchemistX. As such, Ian will be the new host of this podcast. Ian and I will co-host this episode, and then he will carry Innovators Inside into the future. Ian and Angela, it's so great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's so great to be here. Thank you so much, Rachel, and thank you, Angela, for joining us. Angela, if you don't mind, I might just jump in and hit you with the first question.
Absolutely.
Cool. So you made this leap from hospital pediatrician to co-founding a startup. Where did you find the courage?
It was actually not scary to actually make the leap. It was more scary to have stayed. I knew really in second year medical school I didn't want to be a doctor. And it was this constant search for what is the value that I could add in the world that sort of allows me to play at my strengths and what I was passionate about, which was improving access to care. And when I thought about how I was on this treadmill and it would be very easy to kind of just do the next 10 to 20 years as a doctor, and then you have the sunk cost fallacy, and then you'll never get out, and this like whole thing I wanted to do around making a bigger impact will never happen. So yeah, I just got like, I was 28 at the time. It was the summertime, and it was sort of at the start of the new year. And I thought to myself, it's now or never. And I just made that leap of faith, and it happened.
Medicine has got to be the only career where startup founder looks like an easier path.
No, actually, I would say that running the startup is harder than doing medicine.
Yeah, it's very challenging.
So can you tell us a little bit more about what you are working on now that you have taken this leap onto the more challenging path?
For sure. Yeah, I'm super passionate about Clearhead, which I co-founded with Michael, my technical co-founder, in 2018. I think as we continue to go on this journey, the more conviction I have about what we're doing. So Clearhead is an online mental health platform. We use AI to provide personalized mental health support at scale. We do recognize there are limitations to technology, and so we also weave in sort of being able to see professionals as well should you need to. And then we provide all of that support to employers, including unlocking data insights for them about what's going on and how can we support them to build a positive culture at work.
How do you think about walking that line between letting employers express their natural and healthy concern for their employees' mental health and protecting the confidentiality and the privacy of people who have mental health struggles?
Yeah, I don't think it has to be an either or. I would say it's a both and. So for example, Clearhead as a platform fundamentally protects the privacy of the individual. So nothing identifiable will ever be shared. And so you feel it's like that safe space you can reach out to 24/7. But at the same time, the irony is, of course, employees are often in environments that they might not feel that they can speak up about what they're actually struggling with, but they don't actually want to keep being in that environment. So how can we kind of ensure that we also support these employers to do their bit to change the environment while ensuring that the individual does not have to be the messenger that gets shot, basically.
I wonder whether your experience having found yourself in a career that was not a fit for you has made it easier for you to sort of embody that openness to change in the product.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I do think part of it is there is definitely a personality trait to this. I have really, since I was a kid, loved reading lots of books, loved traveling, always looking for new worlds, really, that I could immerse myself in and learn from. And actually, I just hired my CEO, who is a organizational psychologist. And she, before she started, did a deep dive on the organizational assessment. And we have a team of about 20 people at the moment. And she said one of the key traits she picked up was just that openness to change and the agility to adapt. And that was something that she said is a secret sauce to Clearhead that we'll have to make sure as the team grows, we continue to protect. But a large part of it is us deliberately hiring against those values. So that's hence the point around it's a little bit of a personality trait as well. But I guess the nurture nature environment debate can continue as well, I guess.
I did want to go back to something you said earlier, that you acknowledge the limitations of the AI. As a long-time user of mental wellness services myself, I'm acutely conscious that, there are things that a machine can help you do, walking through worksheets and so on, but there are things that you really need the judicious intervention of a human for, like when a person is in crisis. Can you talk about how you build that sensitivity into the software?
Yeah. So as the technology evolves, it allows us to basically continue to improve the sophistication of the responses. But the thing that we kind of make sure we do well, which is part of custom writing our own algorithm, is making sure that there are clinical guardrails in place. So we're always fine tuning the algorithm to make sure that, okay, in this situation, this person needs to speak to someone immediately. In this situation, they can wait to be seen. In this situation, they can self-manage. And that triaging aspect is super important in order to, as you said, make sure that, in the context of healthcare, these are life and death that we deal with, that we do this properly. It's not just I throw a booking app out there and anyone can just, and we can learn from that kind of thing.
That's really amazing. I want to explore just a little bit more of the beginning of your journey. We often talk about, innovators and corporate innovators, they see these problems in the world and they want to tackle them, right? And you jumped out and decided to try and do that. How did you pick this particular problem? Where did that sort of passion and inspiration come from?
Interestingly, it probably weaves your question together. So I worked in the hospital and because, like I said before, I was searching for what I could add value on since I was in medical school. I have been involved in health technology for more than 10 years, even at a ministry nationwide level around rolling health technology projects out. And one of the things that I recognized was just that in large organizations, they were very risk adverse. And so, yes, we were incrementally improving on things, but we were not improving it to a rate or level in which it would actually truly move the dial. We would still 20 years later be facing the same problem. And so basically the reality was the only way for me to see the change I wanted to see in the world was to kind of step out and then from first principle, figure out, well, what is the problem I'm trying to solve? What is the outcome I'm trying to achieve? And how am I going to work backwards and get there? And to answer your question around why mental health, what drove me was to make impact at the largest scale possible. And there are many things in health, like, obviously heart failure, diabetes, etc., that lots of people are affected by. But mental health is the one thing that everyone is affected by at some point in their life. And so I felt that if I innovated there, it would make the biggest difference. And reminder as well, like I started this in 2018 before this was fashionable to do so. I did it when nobody wanted to invest in it, not VCs, not government, not private employers. Nobody wanted to solve this problem. They just thought it was the individual's problem. And I was like, no, this is a systems failure. And we need a systems approach to solve this.
Ah, the days before the pandemic. We were all so innocent.
We were. It's true.
Oh, I'm giggling because yes, we miss that bygone era. It is a wonderful story, right? To be able to recognize that when you're sitting inside of a system, you can't always make the adjustments that you want, right? And you can move out and you can, come up with your idea and then impact the system from the outside. So tell us a little bit about the progress that you've made, right? Because in order to actually help the people that you want to help, you do have to partner with the system, as you say. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I assume both of you would have heard of crossing the chasm and sort of the diffusion curve around innovation. And the reality was the first couple of years was hard for Clearhead. We took a couple of years to find product market fit because initially we tried to sell to government, and that was probably my first mistake. My first mistake was assuming that government would be early adopters of a technology that even now is still slowly getting societal acceptance in terms of the use of AI in the real world. And so because of that, we did not make any money for the first 2 years, and we had to kind of say, well, let's pivot because we're going to run out of money and the company will die. And so then we moved into this corporate well-being space. And so in terms of what we've seen since then, is just amazing traction. And we basically, in the 2 years since we've been running that, we went from like no customer, no revenue to 15% market share, and 9xing our revenue in just 1 year. And we're still completely bootstrapped, actually. And so I'm so proud of what the team has been able to achieve in doing so. But what it just demonstrates is there's clear product market fit where the customer is pulling the solution out of your hands. And now the only thing for me right now is like, it's like, there is so much growth opportunity. The only thing stopping me right now is more capital so I could hire more people, get the job done and make sure that, we make the biggest impact possible. So really excited to see that. And then to your point around partnerships, it's really in the last 6 months that basically all the major players you could think of, like big pharmaceutical companies, large insurance companies, large private hospital companies, and these are companies that have millions of patients as reach, are now coming to us and say, hey, we'd love to partner with you. How can we get there? And I'm just completely excited about that next phase of the company, because I think I see it all in like chapters or phases. And if you have a child, you probably see, as they grow from like just being this like bundle of cuteness to like starting to talk, starting to walk. And so I think we're now at that toddler phase, or maybe coming into our like teenage years, where people are like, oh, okay, actually, you actually know what you're talking about, and let's try and work together and amplify the impact we can make as an ecosystem.
That's amazing. I think that that narrative is going to really resonate for the folks that have children of their own and are watching them sort of blossom. But it's also just great. It's just great to hear you talk with passion and conviction about the customers starting to approach you, right? Isn't that such a nice signal of doing something right?
Yes. It's funny because like I listen to, I'm on YouTube all the time listening to like people share their startup experience, because it is still hard. And I think one of the things that have helped me through all of this is like, even when you're succeeding, even when you have product market fit, it still feels like you're being punched in the face. And I think it's because I could ground myself on that, like, good things take time, good things are hard, and that's why most people don't do them. And then actually holding on to the fact that I'm driven by my passion and that I'm seeing results. And this is easily a 10 to 20-year journey. I'm only at the beginning. I think that's what grounds me, and that's what keeps me excited. And the reality is, when you first start out, especially if you're a startup founder, you think that, you can't tell anyone about your idea. Someone would steal the idea. And then as you kind of go on, you realize that one is ideas are relatively abundant. It would be rare for me to share that Clearhead is solving this mental health crisis. This is how we're solving it. And for people to go, oh yeah, I would have never thought of that. It would have been rare to do that. But to be able to assemble a team to execute against your plan, to achieve it in a capital efficient way, to demonstrate results that give enterprise clients confidence, that is really hard to do. And then when you realize that, you actually become less afraid. You become less afraid about sharing it, because you realize that it's only through working together can you achieve these gains. And you also realize that me talking about my idea or you looking at our website, you are only seeing like 1% of everything else that's happening behind the scenes that actually makes the magic. And so I think that those are the reasons why I have only become stronger in my conviction about Clearhead's ability to truly solve this problem and become a global market leader.
That's amazing. And you're kind of bringing us into a natural segue, right? There's a lot of people out there who are sitting in organizations, who are pondering ideas that they have and are thinking, should I take the leap? Should I go create a startup of my own? Do you have any sort of advice or encouragement for somebody who's thinking about doing that right now?
I'll say two things. I'll share the warning first. The startup life can be incredibly glamorized. And if that's what attracts you, I would caution you to kind of think twice about, is this really what you want? Because as I said to you, like, even when you're succeeding, it will feel like shit. And the second thing is, ask yourself, if you don't do this, do you believe that someone else would? Because then if you feel that whatever you're trying to do can be easily replicated, anyone could do this, then it might not be worth doing it, because then you go down this incredibly competitive route, and then you have to then have the perseverance to be, I'm the one that's going to outcompete everyone else. That is also the idea and intuition. So you really don't wish this on my worst enemy. I say this all the time, I do not wish this on my worst enemy. You have to really want this so if you're sitting right now listening and you're like, I have this great idea, but I don't know if I'm the one to do this. And I don't know if if things get hard, I would really persevere. What about all those moments where the money's going to get tight? Will I be able to kind of push through that? Will I be willing to put my own money on the line for this? If you don't at least give yourself that thought exercise and psych yourself up enough to go like, if that situation comes to bear, I will push through, I will grit through it and persevere, then I would say think twice about doing it, because it does have impact. There is huge sacrifice. I don't get to see my family as much. I don't get to see my friends as much. I don't get to have as much personal time to do fun things. My life really is all consumed by the startup. But this is a choice that I am consciously making, and I'm not making with any resentment. This is incredibly fulfilling for me, and it's a core part of my identity, and it's why I exist in the world.
Thank you. You ask a startup founder for advice and encouragement, and you get a little bit of a warning, and that's a good thing. But you also, Angela, what I heard you say, right, is also something along the lines of be sure to, search for that inner conviction. Search for, is this thing going to be part of your personality and your identity? Is that fair? A fair reflection of maybe some of the encouragement you would say?
Yeah, because and I'm speaking to you now still on a high about what we're doing, but there are definitely moments where it's really low, and I have many moments, especially the first couple of years before we had any sort of positive feedback that we're on the right track, and where I ask myself, like, why am I doing this? Like, like I feel like I'm trying to add value into the world and nobody gives a shit. I'm gonna swear here, and then it's in those moments you have to dig very, very deep and go like, why am I doing this? I also am going to just also caveat that, like, we were very lucky to have an angel investor right from day one. So in those moments, there were two things I leaned on. One was my co-founder. So when I was low, he tries to prop me up. And when he's low, I try to prop him up. So definitely suggest doing this not alone. These moments get very dark and lonely, and nobody will really understand it because most of your friends won't be startup founders. And the second was, there was just money in the bank. It really just came down to, like, why would I throw the game now if I still have moves to make? And until you feel you've run out of moves, you should always keep making it, because you never know what one move would then open the next door, kind of thing. So yeah, so I think to kind of summarize that, we talk about product market fit a lot, but there is also this whole thing around founder market fit. Like, why are you the person to solve this problem? What is it that only you could understand, only you could bring with your knowledge, your skills, your networks, that will knit everything together and have sufficient momentum to go from 0 to 1.
Thanks for sharing. So when you are looking back and you're looking at the span of your career to date and the things that you're doing, what are some of the things that you're most proud of?
I am most proud of the team I've built. Third thing I forgot to mention is that I've built a team that I love to bits. And I mentioned earlier in our chat about, we did this organizational assessment, and one of the things we picked up was the culture of the organization being open and adaptable to change. But the other thing that we also really picked up in the organizational assessment was, like, the highlight for most people is the people they get to work with. Everyone is incredibly smart. There is something about working with A players who are aligned in values and vision, and you are working like a coordinated Navy SEAL team. And to do that, you have incredible amount of trust and vulnerability with each other, but you rely on each other to kind of do things that you can't do alone. And I think they said something, if you want to go fast, go do it alone. If you want to go far, do it together, or something along those lines. I'm a huge believer of that. And it's been really fun from that perspective. So that's the thing I'm most proud of. The second, and along those lines, is making sure that the well-being of my people is maintained. Like, none of my team works more than 40 hours a week, even in the crazy hecticness of the startup. So we really practice what we preach.
Well, and there's a flip side to this. The pride, the obvious pride that you take in building such an incredible team and culture. What's the do-over? If you had one do-over, what would you do differently looking back? This always brings out fun stories.
Yeah, I mean, and this is also just a lesson for most startup founders to learn. I think sometimes we think that all we need to do is, I see this problem in the world, I've built this super cool product, and therefore it will all work out. And one of the things that I wish I did over was be very intentional about the business model from day one. I think what I had started off with was, like, we wanted care to be accessible to everyone. And for us in New Zealand, it's with socialized medicine, and it's the same in sort of places like Canada and Australia. We thought that the best person to purchase our solution was the government. And I think if I had understood how government worked and the procurement processes, I wouldn't have held on to it for as long as I did, which was 2 years, at which in the lifespan of the startup, we could have made way more traction if I had just pivoted, for example, to corporates much earlier. So I think that would be my one caution that I wish I was more deliberate about, is just clearly understanding and validating my business model. Even if it's just one customer, just one person was willing to pay for your product, and then you can figure out the rest. But to kind of spend 2 years not making any money, I would say it's a silly move. Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's Rachel and I talk actually fairly frequently about the trade-offs of working incredibly hard, working smart, working on something you're passionate about. But I think, we've all been in a position in our lives where we maybe have found ourselves working too hard, maybe have found ourselves on the edge of burnout. You talked a little bit about your team culture and 40-hour weeks and being sane and smart, but how do you think about avoiding burnout? You're running a mental health and wellness startup. So talk to me about burnout in your life.
When I talked about how it's incredibly hard, I am not immune to burnout. And we've run for very long, bootstrapped, with the level of scale that we have. So we are definitely inching towards burnout, and recognizing that means that you can put things in place. One, of course, is just to make sure I start capital raising, which I have just started last week. So here we go. And then the second is actually just making sure you just kind of set boundaries. The boundaries you draw will be very personal. Some people can survive on 5 hours sleep and they would still be bouncing around and be all good. And some people, they need their 8. So a lot of things with mental health and well-being, including managing burnout, starts from whether you've taken the time to deeply understand what you need and making sure you protect that. Nobody can tell you what that is, only you can. And then for me, the 2 basic things that I do is I make sure that I meditate every morning just to kind of set myself in a moment of calm. I run a few times a week just to kind of release all that energy and feel good with endorphins, etc. And then I take time to spend, at least a couple of nights either with friends or family. So just to kind of reground myself from that perspective. So those are the things that I use as a way of just taking a break from work. But I acknowledge that I don't do the 40-hour week. I definitely am almost always on, even at a party, which is funny.
It's a lot of mental energy there. But it's really good advice. And I want to come back to something that you just said. You mentioned it a couple times, but you just started capital raising.
Yeah, investors are hard beasts to crack, but I think ultimately it's like you just need one who understands where you want to go and can see the conviction that you have and want to be a partner around on the exciting rocket ship that you're on.
It's amazing. Is this a motivating experience for you? Is this a little bit of a terrifying experience? It's definitely an experience, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is terrifying. I am obviously capital raising in a time where free money is gone, interest rates have gone up. There's a lot of uncertainty and people are trying to figure out where they want to allocate capital and if they do. But I can't control that. I can't control the wars that are happening. I can't control the financial markets. What I can control for sure is around being able to demonstrate the metrics that would be exciting to investors, telling a good story and how I'm going to get there and give them conviction that I have the right team and strategy to win against a competitive landscape. That's all I can control. There is, of course, a broader piece around the gender inequality in BC. In the VC world where, less than 2% of capital goes to female founders and even less, obviously, to ethnic or people of color. And so, again, I can't change my gender or my ethnicity, but what I can do is demonstrate that we've been able to achieve things above and beyond what the general benchmark is. And that's all I am going out with and hope that people can understand what I'm trying to do in the world and are excited by what that would mean if I was successful.
That's such a healthy mindset in two ways, both in, only concerning yourself with the pieces that you can control and can influence, and in understanding that fundraising is just a search. It's a search for the one fundraiser who is, let's assume out there, who is waiting for this pitch, who has an investment thesis that says Clearhead is a company that needs to exist in the world. And you're just looking for that person.
It was pretty funny. I talked to one of the veteran investors. I don't think he's as active investing anymore, but it's Randy Commissar. He does a little bit of advising to me, and it's been super cool because I connected up with him a year ago, and so he's seen my journey from when I first started thinking about getting investment to now actually going out there. And he said to me, it's like, you've 10x in your learning. When I met you, you were passionate, but your thoughts were all over the place. I had to kind of rein you in. And now you're passionate and you're almost clinical about how you think, about how you solve the problem. And that clarity of thought is what will, make you a good founder. And he said to me, it's like, look, ultimately, what you've achieved in the last 1 year, that's the hard bit. The getting investment, he's like, he called it an MBA exercise. I don't know if I would say that so much, but maybe let me get my money first and then I can say it's an MBA exercise. Yeah.
Well, how should folks be following you on this journey? For our listeners who want to engage, connect, or follow your journey from fundraise and capital raise and beyond, what's the best way to do that?
I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so find me there. It's just Angela Lim, running a company called Clearhead. If you are interested in employee wellbeing solution, not afraid to plug my company. We can help you. and just follow us on social. We provide little nuggets of gold there, and really hope to be able to hopefully encourage any founder that is listening to your podcast to keep going if this is what you believe in, and hopefully also shed light to the reality of what it means to run a company. And so it's a buyer's beware if you're looking at coming in.
We have this wonderful audience of innovators who are always looking for opportunities to improve operations and, within their own organizations and partners. So folks, keep your eyes out for opportunities to talk to someone like Angela and Clearhead. But Angela, let's look forward. Let's look beyond your capital raise, and we're curious, like what do you think the future looks like a little bit for you personally, and then also as you look at your industry?
Yeah. Personally, I'm ready for my next chapter. I think the North American market is an exciting market, so I plan to move there in the new year. So that's a bit of change on my end. I think, unfortunately, that the mental health of people is only going to get worse. And that's just because of the level of uncertainty that we face in the world today. And also the changing demographics and their expectation. When you look at millennials and Gen Z, they are bringing their whole self to work, and they are also expecting the support for that whole self to work. So it's not just, I hate my boss, but like, I don't know if I find purpose in my life. I don't know if like my relationship with my mom is going well. They're bringing all of that. And most managers and people leaders are not prepared for that at all. And so we are excited to have a solution to support that. And that to me means that if we know every company is going to be struggling with this and every individual is going to be struggling with how to maintain resilience and well-being in what's going to come over the next 5 to 10 years, I find strength in being part of the solution and not the problem.
If you could wave a magic wand, if everything in the next 5 years in the industry goes your way, what does the world look like?
I was thinking a little bit about what our brand stands for. And I realized our brand stands for empowering growth. So maybe if I give you a couple more famous examples, Apple, for example, their brand is it's about thinking differently. And Airbnb is about staying anywhere or belonging anywhere or something along those lines. And so, Clearhead's about empowering growth. And when I thought about what that meant, what it meant is that through our product, we would empower the personal growth of individual users to be able to develop themselves mentally, spiritually, and emotionally in terms of the skills that they have to deal with the uncertain world that we live in. It means the growth of companies, because if you can empower your people, then they are really the magic of what makes great companies. And then of course, because we also have a therapist network globally, empowering them to make a bigger impact because we've stripped out all the inefficiencies that comes from their practice through working with us instead. So I that was for me a recent crystallization of what the Clearhead brand stands for. And doing all of that through guidance, you're not alone in all of this. We will guide you through this process. It is hard. It's the things to do are simple, but they're not easy to do, if that makes sense.
Thank you for that very clear-headed vision of the future.
Well, and Angela, so I'll turn the same question back over to you. This has been a really fun and wide-ranging conversation. We've hit some great topics, and I think there's some great takeaways for our listeners. What else should we have asked you, or what else would you like to throw into the ether while we're together today?
No, I think you were able to kind of unpack my motivation, what I'm excited about, where I see my role and the role of Clearhead in the world. And I hope I've given enough concrete examples and tips for people listening as they run their startup or think about running their startup or think about partnering with startups. Is that, it is hard to innovate from within. And so be open to looking at the ecosystem and giving startups a chance to be a meaningful player in the ecosystem.
That is a wonderful closing sentiment for the Innovators Inside podcast. It is challenging. There is innovation that is all around us. It's happening here with Angela and with Clearhead. Angela, we can't wait for you to come over and join us in North America, continue to grow your business and your traction. I'm really excited, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Ian, and thanks, Rachel. It's been a blast.
This has been AlchemistX Innovators Inside. You can find the transcript of this conversation plus links to whatever books, articles, TV shows, and apps we talked about on our blog. And stay connected by following us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you found the podcast valuable, feel free to share or tell your colleagues. We love hearing from you. Send us your comments, feedback, suggestions for future guests, or just say hi by emailing us at innovators@alchemistaccelerator.com.